Roll Credits, where movie lovers get the trivia they didn't know they needed. This deep dive was created with help from AI tools, so double-check any quotes before you drop trivia at your next movie night. Today, we're raising the sword of power for Masters of the Universe, the live-action return of one of the most legendary fantasy franchises of the 80s.
Oh, it really is legendary, and, such a massive undertaking to bring back.
Yeah, completely. And I want you to picture something for a second. You are, 8 years old, right? You're sitting right in the middle of a sandbox, or maybe just on the living room rug.
Oh, absolutely, the living room rug for me.
Right, yeah. And you have a plastic action figure gripped in each hand. And in that specific moment, there is just absolutely no irony.
No, none whatsoever. I mean, the stakes in that sandbox are absolute.
Exactly. One piece of molded plastic is smashing into another piece of plastic, but in your mind, you aren't just playing. It is a literal, life or death Shakespearean drama playing out right there next to the coffee table.
The fate of the entire universe hangs in the balance.
It really does. But then, we grow up. And as adults, we kind of lose that specific kind of magic. We look at those exact same toys, and we just see the seams in the plastic.
Yeah, you see a ridiculous guy in a furry loincloth.
Right. Which is the fundamental challenge, I think, of adapting childhood nostalgia for an adult audience. Because how do you bridge that psychological gap?
How do you make grown adults feel the weight of the sandbox again?
Exactly. And that is exactly what we are getting into today. We are taking you straight to Eternia to answer that question, unpacking the highly anticipated 2026 live-action movie adaptation of Masters of the Universe.
And we have a massive stack of sources to build from today, which is so exciting.
Oh, it's huge. We're talking behind-the-scenes set visits, exclusive director and cast interviews ranging from LA Weekly to the AU Review, and these incredibly detailed soundtrack breakdowns.
Plus that massive Reddit Ask Me Anything with the director himself.
Yes, that AMA was a goldmine. It's just a phenomenal treasure trove of production insight.
It really is.
And our mission today is to figure out exactly how the filmmakers took what is, let's just admit it, an inherently silly, wildly, internally inconsistent 1980s toy commercial and transformed it into a critically acclaimed blockbuster.
An emotionally resonant epic, really.
Yeah, all without losing the colorful madness of the original property. Now, you might be looking at the posters and thinking, this is just another nostalgic popcorn flick for a Friday night.
Sure, which is a fair assumption.
Right. But the behind-the-scenes creative process we are about to explore is actually a fascinating masterclass in adapting camp for modern audiences.
Which is an incredibly difficult tightrope to walk. Because if you look at modern blockbuster adaptations, they usually fall into one of two traps. Right?
Oh, totally.
Either they take themselves far too seriously, and they just drain all the joy and color out of the property to make everything gritty and grounded.
Like turning everything gray and brown.
Exactly. Or they go the complete opposite route. They make it a giant spoof where the characters are constantly winking at the audience.
Oh, the sarcastic quips.
Right, throwing out quips to essentially say, look how dumb the movie you're watching is.
Yeah, if you've ever watched a modern superhero movie where an entire city block gets leveled and the hero immediately makes a sarcastic joke to break the tension.
You know exactly what that winking at the camera feels like.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the director of this new movie, Travis Knight, completely rejected both of those traps.
He really did.
And if you look at Knight's background, his approach just makes total sense. He is the CEO of the stop-motion animation studio Laika.
Which is incredible on its own.
Right. And he directed Kubo and the Two Strings and the Transformers spin-off Bumblebee. But crucially, long before he was a filmmaker, he was an 80s kid who absolutely adored He-Man.
And that underlying fandom informed his core vision for the entire production.
It really did.
Knight recognized that the franchise's continuity across 40 years of comics, cartoons, and all those various reboots was a completely tangled mess.
Oh, a total nightmare to untangle.
Right. So he made a strategic choice to just simplify. He ignored the convoluted lore and went straight back to the 1982 and 1983 toys, along with the original Filmation cartoon, to use as his baseline.
Which is a wild choice when you really think about it.
Why is that?
Well, the original Filmation cartoon was notorious for its incredibly cheap, recycled animation. I mean, it was literally designed to just sell toys.
Oh, yeah.
And the concepts were just absurd. We are talking about a universe where characters are literally named Fisto, Trapjaw, and Ram Man.
Forget Ram Man.
I mean, there's a guy whose sole superpower is throwing himself headfirst into walls like a human battering ram, and they named him Rom Man. You just can't make this stuff up.
Well, the executives at Mattel certainly did.
Fair point, yeah.
But what's fascinating here is how the production team handled that inherent silliness. Because they didn't hide it, and they didn't mock it either.
Right.
The film's composer, Daniel Pemberton, coined a phrase during production that basically became the guiding philosophy for the entire crew. He called it extreme sincerity.
Oh, I love that phrase, extreme sincerity. But what does that actually look like in practice, on a film set?
Well, it means taking something that is objectively ridiculous and treating it with total, heart-wrenching emotional commitment.
Wow.
Think of it like telling a ghost story around a campfire. Right? If you stop every 5 minutes to remind everyone listening that you're just making the story up, the magic immediately dies.
You completely lose the audience.
Exactly. You have to commit to the bit. So extreme sincerity is a psychological mechanism that allows for the suspension of disbelief.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
When a movie winks at the camera, it creates psychological distance. It gives you, the audience, permission to disengage from the emotional stakes.
Right, because the movie itself doesn't care, so why should you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But by refusing to be cynical, Travis Knight and his cast demand that you feel something. They demand that you genuinely connect with a guy riding a giant green tiger.
Which is a huge ask. But extreme sincerity can only take you so far if the underlying story doesn't make logical sense.
That's very true.
Which brings me to the parts of the 80s lore that are practically impossible to take seriously today. Because as much as Knight loves the original, there are elements of that cartoon that just do not work.
Oh, for sure.
The biggest one for me, even as a kid, was the secret identity.
Prince Adam and He-Man.
Yes. I never understood it. Look at Superman. Clark Kent at least puts sunglasses, changes his posture, he alters his voice.
He tries, at least.
Right. But Prince Adam's disguise was literally just a tan and wearing fewer clothes. He was already a massively jacked guy with the exact same face.
He was definitely a stretch of the imagination.
Thankfully, Knight agreed. He thought it was completely absurd, too.
Yeah.
So in this film, they just lean into it. Adam literally transforms into He-Man right in front of the villain Trapjaw.
Which is such a funny image.
It is. Everyone knowing his identity is treated as a cheeky joke, rather than some dramatic, closely guarded secret.
And that narrative pivot is incredibly smart, because by removing that layer of forced friction, the script suddenly has room to explore much deeper thematic territory.
Right, it frees them up.
Exactly. Specifically, the script explores the concept of modern masculinity, contrasting it heavily with the action hero tropes of the 1980s.
Yeah, and in this version of the story, Prince Adam is sent away to Earth for his protection when he's just a child.
A huge change from the original setup.
Yeah, he spends 15 years exiled in suburban Oklahoma before finally returning to Eternia.
And that time on Earth fundamentally changes his worldview, because the 1980s action heroes were very much products of their era. Muscle-bound, shoot first, ask questions later archetypes.
Totally.
But Adam brings what the filmmakers describe as a new masculinity back to Eternia.
Right.
He brings empathy, understanding, and kindness to a world that has been exclusively defined by brute force and a warrior mentality.
Now, I have to play devil's advocate here for just a second, because when I hear phrases like modern masculinity and toxic warrior culture injected into a He-Man movie...
The worry is going to be preachy.
Yes. I immediately worry it's going to be a lecture. People are buying tickets to see a guy with a magic sword fight a skeleton, not to get a sociology lesson. Doesn't injecting complex social themes into this kind of property ruin the escapist fun?
You know, that is a very valid concern. But the sources indicate that it actually achieves the exact opposite here.
Really?
Yeah, it fuels the escapism by giving the action genuine weight. I mean, if characters are just fighting for the sake of fighting, it gets boring quickly.
That's true. Just mindless CGI punching.
Exactly. But by giving Adam a philosophy of empathy, the stakes feel real. He-Man is still the classic ripped action hero with the lantern jaw. But his true strength in this film comes from the fact that he actually prefers not to throw a punch.
Oh, I see.
He actively tries to unite Eternia through hope and diplomacy first, resorting to violence only when absolutely necessary.
Wow. Okay, so it creates this incredible friction with the rest of the characters, especially Tila, who is played by Camila Mendes.
Yes, Camila Mendes is fantastic.
Because Tila is this elite warrior, right? She's the captain of the guard. But Mendes pointed out in her interviews that Tila has built this incredibly tough, almost impenetrable exterior just to survive.
Yeah, Mendes spoke beautifully about exploring how toxic masculinity is absorbed by the female characters in this universe.
Right.
Tila grew up in Eternia's hypermasculine environment, completely devoid of the empathy that Adam was fortunate enough to learn on Earth.
And she also harbors this deep, simmering resentment toward her father, Duncan, also known as Man-at-Arms, who is played by Idris Elba.
Which is such perfect casting.
I am thrilled that Idris Elba is playing Man-at-Arms.
Oh, it gets better. Travis Knight revealed in his AMA that Idris Elba is actually a massive old-school fan of the original lore.
Wait, really? Idris Elba is a He-Man nerd.
A huge MOTU nerd,
Yeah.
and finding that out brought the director immense joy, obviously.
That is so great.
But looking at Tila and Duncan, their strained relationship provides a genuine emotional anchor for the film. So it's not a lecture, it's a character dynamic.
Right, it's personal.
Yeah, it allows the movie to explore the cost of this warrior culture on a deeply personal, familial level.
Okay, I love that. But to actually sell that juxtaposition, a pacifist trapped in the body of a demigod, interacting with these hardened warriors, you need actors who can walk a very strange tightrope.
You really do.
And here is where it gets absolutely fascinating, because the actors went through some wild onset transformations to pull this off. Let's look at Nicholas Galitzine, who plays Prince Adam and He-Man.
Knight was very specific in his interviews about the casting process here. He cast Galitzine for his charm, his vulnerability, and his spirit.
Not for his physique.
Right, he didn't cast him for his body. He wanted an actor who could capture the empathetic soul of the character we just talked about.
But the reality is, Galitzine still had to look like He-Man. I mean, to visually sell the idea that this guy could destroy you but is actively choosing not to, he needed the physical mass.
Yeah, to be huge.
Exactly. So Galitzine underwent this grueling transformation. He was eating 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day.
Oh my gosh.
And lifting heavy weights for months. And apparently, Travis Knight didn't see him for a few weeks during pre-production, and when he finally did, he was completely shocked by how much muscle Galitzine had packed on.
Well, it physically manifests that extreme sincerity we were talking about.
It really does.
Galitzine knew he had to physically match the emotional weight he was bringing to the role. But, I mean, if we are discussing extreme onset transformations, the conversation absolutely has to turn to Jared Leto as Skeletor.
Oh man, Leto went to absurd lengths for this.
He always does.
True. So Skeletor in this movie is entirely practical from the neck down. Leto wore this incredible physical muscle suit created by prosthetic master Barry Gower.
The detail on that suit is supposed to be insane.
Yeah, from the descriptions and the sources, it looked like a body with the skin completely ripped off, exposing all this raw blue muscle.
Terrifying.
But because Skeletor is a skeleton, Leto's actual face was slated to be replaced by a CGI skull in post-production.
Which creates a very unique problem on set. While they were filming, anyone looking at him just saw Jared Leto's normal, handsome face poking out of the top of a horrific blue monster suit.
And Leo realized that wasn't very intimidating for his co-stars. So, to ensure that actors like Alison Brie, who plays his second-in-command, Evil Lynn, were genuinely terrified of him during their scenes, Leto smeared this horrific, blood-like makeup all over his actual face every single day.
Wow.
He made himself look like a waking nightmare just for the people on set.
You know, my initial reaction to hearing that was to just roll my eyes.
Oh, same here.
It's so easy to write that off as typical Hollywood method acting eccentricity. You hear a story like that and think, well, Jared Leto is just doing his usual over-the-top antics for attention.
That was my exact thought.
But Travis Knight framed it in a completely different way in the interviews. He actually called Leto's makeup trick an act of generosity.
Okay, generosity is like the absolute last word I would use to describe terrifying your coworkers. How is that generous?
Well, it reveals a lot about the actual mechanics of acting in a heavy visual effects movie. Because acting fundamentally relies on reacting.
Okay.
If Alison Brie is delivering an emotional, terrified monologue, but she is just looking at an actor's normal face above a rubber suit, her brain isn't registering actual fear.
She just sees Jared Leto.
Right. She has to entirely fake her terror while trying to mentally imagine a skull. By turning his face into something genuinely unsettling, Leto gave the other actors a physical stimulus to react to in real time.
Oh, I see.
It triggered a primal response. He bridged the gap between practical acting and CGI, allowing the scene to remain grounded in authentic emotion.
Wow, that reframes it completely. He was helping them stay in that zone of extreme sincerity.
Exactly.
He's giving them a tangible reality. And that philosophy, giving the actor something real and physical to interact with, didn't stop at makeup and muscle suits. It actually dictated how they built the entire world of Eternia.
It really was a huge part of the production.
Leto's practical muscle suit reflects a much broader philosophy of the film, which was making this alien world feel as physically real as possible.
Which is wild, because if you look at modern blockbuster filmmaking, it is incredibly rare to build massive physical sets anymore.
It's all digital now.
Yeah, the standard operating procedure is to put the actors in a giant green screen box, maybe give them an Apple box to stand on, and just build the entire world digitally in post-production.
But they completely bucked that trend. They actually traveled the globe to shoot in real
It
locations.
is amazing.
They filmed the royal interiors in the towering actual Gothic halls of England's Wells Cathedral.
Wow.
They shot the alien landscapes on the volcanic black sands of Iceland and the snowy peaks of the Italian Dolomites. And when they couldn't find a location, they built absolutely massive physical sets.
Yeah, Alison Brie mentioned in an interview how physically awestruck she was just walking onto the sound stages.
I bet.
Because they didn't just build a facade. They actually built the interior of Castle Grayskull. They built Skeletor's throne of bones. They even built the giant physical tongue of Snake Mountain for the actors to physically walk on.
Okay. The logistics of building a giant snake tongue sound like a nightmare. Why go through all that trouble and incredible expense when a computer could just do it cheaper?
Well, if we trace this back to Travis Knight's background, the why becomes very clear.
Right, the stop motion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Having spent years running Leica and directing stop-motion animation, Knight intimately understands the psychological power of tactile environments.
Okay.
Stop-motion relies entirely on physical objects, real lighting, and physical texture. So Knight knows that when actors interact with a physical, tangible space, it translates into a vastly different on-screen energy than acting against a tennis ball on a green stick.
That makes a lot of sense.
When you film in a real cathedral, the light bounces off real stone. The actors physically feel the scale and the chill of the room. Their footsteps echo naturally.
All those little details.
Right? All of those tiny sensory details subconsciously signal to the audience that this world, however bizarre it is real.
But operating in the physical world means dealing with physical realities, primarily the budget. And there were some tough budget casualties along the way here.
Oh, there always are.
Knight revealed that he desperately wanted to include the classic villain merman. He had this whole epic, sprawling action sequence planned out at sea. He also had the heroic character Snout Spout in the script for a very long time.
Okay, for those unfamiliar, Snout Spout is a character with a literal metal elephant head who shoots water from his trunk.
Just another normal day in Eternia. But realizing those characters practically and realistically on the massive scale the film demanded was simply too expensive.
I can imagine.
Yeah, Mattel looked at the price tag for the merman sea battle and basically said, absolutely not. So they were cut. It just goes to show that even on a massive blockbuster, there are hard limits to what you can physically build.
It's true. But while it's unfortunate for fans of those characters, budget constraints often enforce a necessary narrative discipline.
How so?
Film is a time-based art. Having less money forces a director to cut the peripheral spectacle and focus the narrative on what truly matters, the core emotional story of the protagonists.
That's a great way to look at it. And, when you have these massive, towering physical sets and actors giving these intensely visceral, grounded performances, a standard, generic action movie soundtrack is just going to sound thin.
Oh, completely.
You need an auditory environment that matches that massive physical scale. Which brings us back to composer Daniel Pemberton.
Yes, Pemberton faced a very unique challenge here, because how do you write a score that sounds like extreme sincerity?
Exactly. His solution was to invent what he called a maximalist score.
A maximalist score.
Yeah, he blended the crushing weight of a heavy theatrical rock opera with the campy, colorful, synthesized pop sensibilities of the 1980s.
I love that blend.
It is designed to be emotionally overwhelming, and to really nail that authentic Hard Rock Stadium vibe, they brought in actual rock royalty. They recruited legendary Queen guitarist Brian May to play on the score.
Which is such a brilliant, deliberate choice of instrumentation.
Right. He used his famous red special guitar, the exact guitar he built with his dad when he was a teenager, to play the galloping, thunderous main theme for Eternia.
That is so cool.
There is even a percussive nod to the iconic stomp stomp clap of "We Will Rock You" hidden during Prince Adam's combat training sequence.
See, the why behind that choice is crucial. Brian May's guitar tone carries a very specific cultural resonance.
Yeah, you hear it and you just know.
Exactly. It brings a sweeping arena rock sincerity that instantly connects the film to the space opera vibe of the 1980s without sounding like a cheap parody.
Right.
But the handling of the music also reveals a massive amount of narrative sophistication from Pemberton, because fans of the original cartoon will undoubtedly be sitting in the theater waiting to hear the iconic 1980s theme song, the one written by Haim Saban and Shuki Levy.
Oh, for sure. The second he holds up that sword and says, "I have the power," you expect that music to just hit.
But Pemberton discovered a major structural problem during the editing process.
What was it?
That original TV intro is essentially a 10-second blast of pure, uncut adrenaline. It works perfectly for a quick television opening to grab a kid's attention, but it doesn't sustain itself well over a sprawling, multi-minute cinematic action scene.
Oh, it loses its impact.
It does.
So I have to imagine he didn't just scrap it, right? Fans would completely riot. How do you solve that?
What's fascinating here is Pemberton's incredible restraint. He doesn't just play it right away.
Okay.
He teases little rhythmic motifs of that classic theme early in the film, weaving it subtly into the background score. But he holds back the full, massive, orchestral rock version of the TV theme until the film's epilogue.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the exact moment when Adam fully actualizes and becomes He-Man in name and spirit. Yeah. A track called A Job for He-Man.
Man, the delayed gratification on that must be absolutely incredible.
It is entirely by design. The music acts as a narrative device.
That is so smart.
By making the audience wait, the music actively rewards their patience. It mirrors Adam's own internal journey. Just as Adam has to earn the mantle of He-Man through empathy and sacrifice, the film earns the right to play that iconic theme.
It is the ultimate emotional payoff. And that brings us full circle on our mission today. We wanted to unpack how the filmmakers actually pulled this off.
And we've seen how Travis Knight and his team utilized extreme sincerity to treat the absurd with total respect.
Yeah, we've seen how they updated the lore to explore deep character psychology and the very real implications of a toxic warrior culture.
We examined the intense physical and emotional commitment of the actors, from Galateen's grueling physical contrast to Leto's terrifyingly generous makeup choices that anchored the CGI in reality.
And we marveled at the rock and roll, practical filmmaking, building real cathedrals and giant snake tongues instead of relying on green screen voids and unleashing the arena rock guitar riffs of Brian May.
They really took a beloved, chaotic childhood cartoon and elevated it into modern resonant cinema.
They really did.
And for you listening, whether you are prepping for a movie night this weekend or you are simply fascinated by creative problem solving on a massive scale, this film stands as a profound case study.
Absolutely.
It proves that respecting the intelligence of your audience and honoring the emotional core of your source material, no matter how goofy or campy it might seem on the surface, can make absolutely anything resonate deeply.
It brings us right back to the sandbox we talked about at the very beginning. When you treat the material with the same absolute, unironic belief that an 8-year-old does, real magic happens on screen.
It really does.
Which leaves you with a final thought to mull over today. If Masters of the Universe can successfully tackle complex themes of toxic masculinity and emotional vulnerability, while a guy named Rom Man is actively throwing himself headfirst into stone walls,
what other discarded, campy childhood properties might be hiding profound, untapped stories, just waiting for a visionary to take them seriously? It really makes you wonder what else is buried at the bottom of the toy box.
It absolutely does. And that wraps our journey through Masters of the Universe. If you enjoyed this deep dive, follow Roll Credits and share it with your fellow movie fans, and let us know what film we should cover next, old or new. We'll be back soon with more trivia, more movie magic, and until then, by the power of Grayskull.